Misfits Monsters, and today on episode 1 of this podcast, we're going to talk about my vegan garden. In other words, I'm going to tell you about all my landscaping plans for my new acreage for this year. First off, March is trimming season in Iowa, so sometime next week, I'll trim all the rose bushes on the property and maybe some of the fruit tree branches. My dad did a little bit of trimming earlier, but we have a little bit of snow on the ground, so I haven't picked up the branches yet. When I moved here in September, the rose bushes grew wildly. They weren't trimmed last year and probably not the year before. The people that used to own this house, they moved out at least a year and a half ago. So some of the landscaping stuff hasn't been kept up that well. And you can tell with the rose bushes in particular, the branches easily trip people when they're on the sidewalk. They're really long, probably at least 8 foot long. They don't bud because they aren't able to bud with not being able to be trimmed. That helps them grow. In the 3 months of fall I was here, I only saw 1 rose bud. If you compare it to the rose bush I got at my uncle's funeral, it's about 5 years old. It had at least 50 rosebuds on that one individual plant versus 1 rosebud on like 6 or 7 plants. It's horrible. I did trim my rose bush at my parents' place, but I didn't do much here yet because it was pretty cold that day, and it's going to be a lot more work because there's a lot more to trim here. Not too long ago, I bought a bunch of seeds at Menards. I probably only needed a quarter of the seeds, but I was really excited when I saw that seed section right near the cash register, so I bought a lot more than I needed to. Instead of boring you to death with a list of fruits and vegetables, I'm going to include an entire list of what I bought on my website. So if you go to mischievous.monsters.com/garden podcast, you're going to find the whole list of everything I bought for my garden this year. And I will probably give some of the seeds away because I bought a little too much. Some of the produce seeds packets I got were sweet corn, broccoli, watermelon, and pumpkin. And with it being Iowa, we're pretty known for our corn. But if you're unaware of how corn works, there's 2 types of corn. There's corn and there's sweet corn. The crop that I was known for is corn that you give to cattle, pigs that live on farms. Sweet corn is the type of corn you eat in a can, frozen, fresh, or on the cob. That's what you're going to find in the store. The hard stuff is stuff you're going to feed squirrels if you're a city folk. Sweet corn's pretty tall, so I'm going to grow that either in the back of the garden or in a separate section, or else that's going to be too tall for anything else to grow. I'm not sure if my dad's planting corn or soybeans around my house, so that's going to depend on if I'm going to plant it here or plant it behind the barn at their place. And some of the vinier stuff, like pumpkins, watermelon, I've also got cucumber, I'm going to possibly grow it up in the air. So you know how you do vines with snap peas? I'm going to try doing that with some of the taller, wider spreading plants to save space. One of the sheds at my place has a lot of extra gardening supplies. I'm going to have to go through that sometime and figure out what I want to use and what not. If my former high school band teacher isn't using the garden space behind my parents' barn, I may use some of that. I know I have a patch outside my library window, and then I think there's another patch behind some of the sheds. At my old house, I converted a sandbox looking thing into a little garden patch. The previous owner had like a niece that had like a kid, so that's most likely where the sandbox come from. So I added some dirt and plants to it, but unfortunately I couldn't get that much to grow out there for obvious reasons. The sandy soil made it more difficult to grow. I had this plan before I moved away from my original hometown. If I was going to move away, I'm going to move back in 2 to 3 years. I didn't plant a garden last year because I was very confident I was going to move in 2021, and I did in September. So I didn't want to waste my time gardening something I probably wasn't going to eat or use. This year I plan on gardening more because I have way more space to do it, and I'm going to have a lot more spare time because I work 8 less hours, and then on Fridays I only have a half day, so it's like I have 2.5 day weekends. I need to start saving some of my silk half-gallon containers and cartons because they're very good for putting around baby plants. So you cut up the top and the bottom, put it around a small plant, and then it's a lot easier to tell what are the weeds, what's the plant, and then it's kind of like a greenhouse type of thing. I also want to grow some regular potatoes and sweet potatoes. I want to grow them in huge pots because it's very hard to find them when you grow them in the ground. You either miss a lot or you're like, I totally found all of them. No, you didn't. And if the pots are super expensive, I'm going to see if my dad has some spare tires, like just regular tires, tractor tires, and I can put some fabric on the bottom and some rocks to keep it down and try to put some dirt in and plant them in there. If you didn't know, I have a huge asparagus patch now. It probably has at least 10 or 15 pounds worth of asparagus. And no, I am not letting everybody use it. I am happy I don't have to asparagus hunt in the ditches anymore. And my mom's really happy. And she doesn't like coming to my house because I have cats. But she'll make the trip to come to my yard to go get some asparagus. I doubt she'll come in and say hi though. I'm pretty confident I have a couple of rhubarb plants next to one of my dad's farming sheds. I'm not super confident on that because I didn't see it bloom. I just thought I saw pictures of it when they had pictures at the house. I'll have to check if they survived the winter and how big of a supply it is. I had some nice rhubarb plants at my old house, and I'll have to just find some good dishes to make. My mom enjoys making strawberry rhubarb crisp, but it's not vegan. So I haven't had it in like over 5 years since I have been vegan for over 5 years. I don't think there's a strawberry patch on my acreage. I'll have to find a decent place to start somewhere. I might just pick an area and then get some. Hopefully in 2 summers from now I'll have some homegrown strawberries, but we'll see how that works. I have a few grapevines, but the grapes taste gross because they're wine grapes. I might try to grow a few different grape flavors around there. But I'm not getting rid of the wine grapes because some of my family likes it. We'll see how that goes. I wouldn't mind starting a berry patch somewhere if I had the room. I grew up in a wooded backyard full of blackberries and elderberries. I don't get why I was the one designated to pick up berries because I was most likely to get bitten to death by mosquitoes. That meant I had to wear long sleeves and pants in 90-some degree days to go a few feet into the woods and hope the mosquitoes were going to be nice to me that day. That was an interesting experience. We used to have a small raspberry patch until someone ran it over with a driving lawnmower, and I'm not salty about that. I'll try to plant some blackberry, raspberry, and blueberry bushes. There's a good chance that if I go to the semi-annual Amish school auction sale in Hazleton, I can get batches of baby blackberry and raspberry bushes. I might get some nice hanging flower pots from there too. I'll probably get some blueberry bushes from either Menards or online. My mom tried getting some weird varieties of blueberry bushes many years ago. One was like a pink lemonade blueberries and it kind of had a pinkish tint. Those bushes didn't last more than a summer or 2 at the most. If I don't get flowers from the Amish, there's plenty of options. There's a huge greenhouse not too far from there that's owned by a Mennonite community. They sell the best imported peaches and they got a lot of nice flowers there. There's also a local place that sells flowers and produce near the water park. By the way, they're building a theme park. I'm getting season tickets. I'll probably be there this summer. Back to that local farm. They show massive mum plants. I got a couple of them last fall, but they didn't last long with the cold weather. I also have a couple of local nurseries that I pass by on my way to work all the time. I once got a couple of tree rose plants. So it's like a hybrid of a rose plant and then you got a tree trunk. I don't think any of them are alive anymore. Maybe one is, but they're not hardy plants in the winter, so you have to bring them in and out all the time. And one was orange and one was yellow, had yellow roses on it. Before I start doing all the planning of everything I'm planning in the garden, around the house, I'll have to put some new mulch around it. The current mulch is old and ugly, so I'll get some cherry mulch from the local hardware store sometime by the end of this month. I prefer the redder mulch, but this would be the first time me getting it. My old house was green. Reddish mulch and greenhouse, it makes it look like Christmas. That looks kind of weird, especially in the spring and summertime. It looks a lot nicer around my house right now because I have like the white mini stereotypical farmhouse. It looks a lot nicer around this house instead. I'll also get some more fruit trees. I currently have a tart cherry tree, a few apple trees, and a large pear tree. In middle school, I begged my dad to get a deformed looking pear tree while getting a couple cherry tree at Menards. He reluctantly said yes, thinking the tree would never grow. Today, that pear tree is huge and has a decent pear supply. Since then, one of the cherry trees he got died. Well, I'm pretty confident the other one's alive, but it's pretty small. The main problem with fruit trees on my acreage is they're pretty much deer food. We aren't treating them with pesticides, and they just have a bunch of bugs in them. So I'm going to try to figure out something from Menards so I can actually eat the fruit without eating bugs with it. Some of the fruit trees I'm wanting are the stone fruits like apricot, plum, and peach. We used to have this nice plum tree in the far left corner, but that died a long time ago, and I haven't had any good plums that anywhere compared to those plums since. Since I live in Iowa in a hardier winter climate, I'm not sure how the apricots and peaches would grow, but I'm pretty confident I can find something that could stand our winters. Outside of gardening, I'm going to make an outdoor cat pen for my cats so they can go outside. Like, I'd bring them into the shed and then like the outdoor pen, and they can play without worrying they're going to get ran over by semis. I'm going to clean it up a bit. I'm going to paint some of the walls, just different shades of teal, blue, purple, and pink after I put a primer down. And then I'm going to get some cat jungle gym stuff that you can climb on the walls and everything. I don't want to spend more than like $100. I don't know how much those cost. And then I'm going to get some chicken wire and some posts and try to enclose it so they can't get out, and maybe make it 8 foot tall. Just tall enough so people can walk in it easily, like humans can walk in. Overall, I'm super excited about what this year will bring. My dad will probably make me pick up rocks because I'm right next to his biggest field. Thanks for listening to episode 1 of Mischievous Monsters podcast. Next week, I'm going to inform you why I stopped my Misfits Market weekly produce subscription. Have a great day.